नहमदुहु व नुसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. It seems like when some people talk about the verses in Qur'an that only focused on halal meat, or verses that the co-workers are always asking about to prove what Islam is. However, the Qur'an is so much more than that. And one of the style of verses is getting us to reflect upon the creation. And that is the dua that we will be speaking about. But before we get to that, we're going to go back a couple of verses to get to the context of the dua. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. For Allah belongs all that is in the heavens and the earth, and He is over all things powerful. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Verily, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the changing of the night and the day, are signs for those of understanding. Now the word used here comes from lub, which means the inner part of seed. In other words, those people who have deep understanding. It's like when we were in school and the teacher would ask a question and you wanted to answer quickly. And what would they say? They would say, now think before you answer. Right? Think deeply. The people that think deeply make this dua. What is that dua? What are their characteristics? الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. They are those who remember Allah sitting, standing, and on their sides, and they reflect. They ponder upon the creation. They ponder upon the universe. So they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sitting, standing, and on their side. What does that mean? So when they are walking to class, they remember Allah. When they are sitting at the doctor's office waiting, they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before they go to sleep, they make dua as from the sunnah. In other words, they are constantly remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they reflect in the creation. And what do they say? They say this dua. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. O Allah, you did not create all of this amazing creation. You did not create this in vain. Praise be to you, and save us from hellfire. What is our place in this universe? 400 billion some galaxies, millions, billions of stars. To say we are a speck is not accurate. We are like of a speck of a speck. The planet Earth is a speck. And so where are we in relation to Earth? Next to nothing. Insignificant. This is the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can we not reflect on this creation? They asked that the lead scientist at Paul Allen's Brain Institute, how much do you know about the human mind? He scoffed. He said, we don't even know how the brain of a worm works. This tiny creature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, we can't figure out fully how their brain works. How are we going to understand a complex creature like the human being? The human being is such a marvelous creation. and it can only be created through the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the beauties of the believer is that we reflect on creation to lead us to the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't want to be lost and get lost in that creation. It seems like when we think of intelligent people, nowadays we think of people, scientists in a lab, and certainly those people are intelligent. But anyone who has disconnected themselves from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the Creator, then they have achieved nothing. This is why in our history, when Muslims were really being more productive, they used their discoveries and creations because it was being based of how do we get to know the creation and admire Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. So the next time we see beautiful green grass, the next time we see a tree, we make this dua. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. Allah, you did not create this in vain. We are here for a purpose. We are here to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I hope next time we see that beautiful shining moon, there are other duas for that as well. But when we see the moon shining, or the stars, or the sun, or the green grass in one part of a year, or completely dead in another part, and then lush green again, or we see some animals, whether we saw it on Netflix or impersonal, wherever it is, we make this dua to allow us to reflect upon the power of the one who deserves all worship.